Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag and drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
In just a matter of seconds, you're going to hear a classic episode of this show from back in the day when we called ourselves Movies We Like.
It took us a while to settle into the show's format, so you'll notice some differences as you listen to these episodes. For instance, it takes us a bit of time to actually get into the conversation about the movie. Things like that.
But we're still proud of the conversations about the movies themselves, and we think they're worth keeping in the library.
So enjoy these episodes from our back catalog. And you can become part of our Discord community, learn more about the show, and find out how you can become a supporting member at thenextreel.com.
So thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to The Next Reel. We appreciate your time and attention, and we hope you enjoy the show. I didn't know. That's a Skype delay, I'm sure.
Oh, threw me off.
Well, you counted backwards. Who counted?
I was counting down. I was doing a countdown.
You don't do a countdown. When you count in, you count up. When somebody says, count me in, you count up. We're doing it again. 1,
okay.
2, 3. Hello. You started late.
I'll see. It is a Skype delay.
Well, I at least feel like I've proven my point. We'll fix it in post. Welcome to the show, everybody. It's episode 100. Oh, now you're giving away the gag.
No,
No.
My little trumpet, my little excited, like my cake burst open and all the little people came dancing out. The little rubber band.
Who are the Who are the little people? What universe offers little people that jump out of a cake? They're all covered in icing. Poor little people. How could they possibly play their little trombones when they're all covered in frosting?
I was picturing the rubber band. Do you remember the old Warner Brothers cartoons? It was a band and they were all rubber bands, but it was a rubber band. And they would they would march across the screen quickly and they would play their little rubber band instruments.
I missed that. How are you, Andrew? I'm so excited about episode 100. Did you ever think in a million years, 100 episodes ago, that's 100 solid weeks, my friend, 100 episodes, that we would possibly be here 100 episodes hence? Figure that out. You parse that and get back to me.
Amazing. Yes. It really is amazing.
Do you remember?
It's exciting. When you first asked me, hey, we should do this show together, I was like, oh, this sounds like a fun time. I don't think I ever quite thought that we would actually be doing it this long. So it is very exciting.
What is the number one biggest lesson that you have learned over the last 100 episodes about film? Go ahead.
This is what we prep before the show, Pete. We're supposed to have time to think. I have learned that watching a movie every week is a lot of fun, and it's a good way to stay connected to the wonderful magic of cinematic storytelling.
Well, that's pretty good. That was pretty good. I didn't see that coming. I'm not nearly as prepared as you are. I was going to say something about the movie Rush. And,
oh yes.
And about Now You See Me, which is now available on Blu-ray. Please don't buy it. Some of our favorites.
Let's bring up the ones we really love on the 100. There you go.
Don't forget Strange Days. Everything past the credits. This has been I learn so much every single week talking to you, and I almost always find that I like the movies more after I talk to you about them. There are notable exceptions to that rule, but almost always I find I like the movies more after I hear your insights.
Especially Taxi Driver.
That one didn't play as well. I'm just saying did not work. Your next did not work. You were downright cranky.
There are a lot of good conversations that we've had, and I really enjoy having them, and I do feel that I walk away with new insights into each film, and it's always fun to just kind of have these casual, chatty conversations about movies that we like, for the most part.
Indeed. Gosh, you remember when the show was called Movies We Like?
Boy,
those were the days.
And then we started talking about movies that we don't like.
And had to change the entire branding of the show.
Damn it, Rush, you really screwed us up.
That's good stuff. For those of you who've been longtime listeners of the show, you'll know that we have been complaining about this for some time, that we don't have a theme song for the next reel. And we're very excited tonight, episode 100, to unveil our brand new theme song. Are you ready?
I know I am. I think it was just what this show needed to really finally get the level of professionalism that it deserves.
I think so. I could not have said that better. Nailed it.
Oh, man.
That is a track called Ragtime Instrumental from the wonderfully talented Eli Catlin. I found that on SoundCloud. Eli's got a ton of great stuff on there, so we'll post a link this week in the show notes to Eli's SoundCloud page, and definitely check out his stuff. He is gracious enough to release this track into the Creative Commons, so we are using it with his blessing, and we sure appreciate him being so gracious to our modest production. Okay, so what do we have to say for episode 100? We have been saving this one. We're going to talk about a movie tonight that I think we're both pretty excited about.
I am super excited. I've been giddy about this film since I knew that there was going to be one. Back when I discovered that there was this third Cornetto film that was going to be made by Edgar Wright, Simon Pegg, and Nick Frost, and I've been little giddy schoolboy about knowing it was out there one day. I mean, geez, we did the first two shows back in it was like spring 2012, wasn't it?
Wow. I'm going to tell you because I'm browsing by series on our website right now. And that's true. No, it was March 16th, 2012, March 8th and March 16th, Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz. Yep. And that leads us to today. We're talking about, boy, that was before we did trailers, before we did film nonsense.
Yeah,
man,
a lot has changed.
We are wrapping.
Back when I was still the movie monkey.
Yeah. Tonight we're finishing up the Three Flavors Cornetto Trilogy with The World's End, and it obviously came out a couple of weeks ago. This is a newer film. It's still in theaters as we are recording this, so if you have not seen it and you don't want to be spoiled, please step away from your sound machine.
Because we are going to spoil the hell out of this one.
We are going to spoil the hell out of this one. It's and so do that. That's what we do here. We spoil movies. You can find out more about us at thenextreel.com. You can join the conversation at facebook.com/thenextreel. You can subscribe to the show, which we strongly encourage you to do by visiting iTunes and subscribing there. That is, you can subscribe using any number of, podcatchery technology, but iTunes is still where most people find the show. We really appreciate the kind words and the comments that you leave on iTunes. Those definitely get back to us, and it's motivating to keep talking about movies and keep pushing out the links. So we sure appreciate that.
Just like birthing a baby, push those links out. Sorry, that's a terrible metaphor.
God, isn't it? Do you know what's funny? It's how fast things can get just super weird. It's just
that is funny.
It's like flipping a switch, right? And suddenly something comes out of your mouth, and it's super weird.
Yep, I need a drink.
So there's that, and let's see. Now I've totally derailed. You can find us on Twitter. Andy over there is, what are you?
At Soda Creek Film.
At Soda Creek Film. I am at Pete Wright, and hang out at the next reel. Also at the blog. Definitely find the blog because our good and kindly Steve Sarmento is pushing out blog posts over there, and he's a great writer and he thinks deeply about films, and I love reading every time he posts something.
Absolutely.
And we have an announcement. Then we're officially done with the news. I don't want to belabor this, but our announcement is, if you're listening this week, on Saturday, right?
Mm-hmm.
Am I right?
You're right.
On Saturday, we're having another film board, so be on the lookout this weekend for another of our very special edition Next Reel Film Board episodes. We're bringing the board together to take on Prisoners.
Mm-hmm.
Are you ready for Prisoners? Are you excited about Prisoners? I think you were the one who was excited about this one.
Yes, it's a Thanksgiving film for the whole family.
Well, most of it.
The whole family, they start together.
Yeah, no, that's good. This will be good. I have not read any early reviews or any early signals. I have no idea if this one is going to further contribute to the Next Reel curse, but I'm excited to talk about it with you, gents.
Definitely looking forward to it.
And now, let's talk about some trailers.
Fantastic.
You don't even know my trailer.
Let's start with yours, since it's a mystery to me.
The Last Days on Mars. What?
Oh, yeah, I saw that. I haven't seen the trailer, but I saw the
You haven't seen the trailer? No. This
been a
is
bad
why we prepare.
trailer week for me, yeah.
Yeah. I can't pronounce the name, so you're going to have to get me on this. Director Rory Robinson? Rory Robinson. Rory? Ruairi.
Yeah, it looks like
Rory Robinson. Sounds like Siri. You sound like Siri. Rory Robinson. Rory Robinson hasn't directed. Rory Robinson has not directed very much. It's just too bad because this movie looks so good. No, it's not too bad. This is a fantastic movie. The first thing is a bunch of short films: Blinky TM, Silent City, 50% Grey.
The House on
Dame Street, and so Last Days on Mars is it's sort of a blip in there. Is based on the short story by Sidney J. Bounds, Clive Dawson, stars Liev Schreiber, Romola Gari, Elias Koteas, Olivia Williams, Johnny Harris, Goran Kostic, Tom Cullen. It's got a great cast of typically wonderful supporting actors.
Yes.
All in a spaceship together, and it looks not a little bit like Prometheus, but on Mars, and probably not quite so overwrought.
Gotcha.
I'm going to get in trouble again because of our friend who read us the riot act about not liking Prometheus enough, and I would like to say, for the record, I think in many areas, I think he may be right.
I still haven't seen it. It's on my list, though. I will watch it again.
I pulled it out. And it's
by the way.
Anyway,
it's pronounced Rory. It's just spelled in the Gaelic Irish spelling, so it looks very confusing. But it's just simply Rory.
I prefer my pronunciation once again. Rory Robinson. So anyway, Last Days on Mars, it's got a UK release of September 19th, so it's already in theaters in the UK. I actually haven't checked if it's streaming yet here, but no US release date as far as I can find. But the trailer looks really interesting, mostly because I am a complete sucker for stranded on other planets films, and I do generally like them. I take them very personally, and when they fail me, I feel hurt, like somebody just broke up with me. But that's why I'm really looking forward to my first date with The Last Days on Mars.
It does look like it opens at limited in the U.S. December 6th.
Oh, good find.
So there you go.
7.6 out of 10 from 133 reviewers. So it's a good fair C.
Yeah, it looks, from looking at the picture, it looks great.
You should definitely
I will watch the trailer soon.
Yeah, you should watch the trailer soon. It looks pretty darn good. So check it out.
Cool.
What's yours, my friend?
My trailer this week is what starts off looking quite like a goofball comedy turns into a little more of a comedic drama, and it's Best Man Down, the film that Ted Koland is directing, starring Justin Long, Jess Wexler, and Tyler Labine, who is the best man who does die the day of the wedding. He was in Rise of the Planet of the Apes. He was in Tucker and Dale versus Evil. I talked about that a while back on the show. And he's just a very funny actor that just has that kind of cuddly teddy bear sort of look. And in this, he's like the obnoxious best man who ends up dying, and then it looks like all of a sudden it becomes this kind of touching story as this man is trying to learn who his friend was, who is kind of a loner. And I really found it very touching, and it just looks like something that will be a great kind of little indie comedy drama. Yeah, it does. I know this brings dark memories up for you.
No, it's not even that. It actually looks really good, and I think I think it looks really great. I love.
Yeah, it looks very touching.
I do love these touching sort of journey stories, and I love the whole concept of getting to know somebody after they've died through their sort of history. Yeah. That's always been a concept that's very appealing to me. It's like pulling out the trunk in the attic. to learn about, long past family. I think it's a wonderful story, and I love these journey stories, and I think it's going to be a touching little film. I look forward to seeing it too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what's it called again?
It's called Best Man Down.
No, I should have remembered that.
It's not
Subtle.
quite the sequel to White House Down. But it could have been.
Did you see? Have you seen any of the blowing up White House movies this summer? Did you see?
No, I missed them both.
I missed them both as well.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm that disappointed about having missed them both. Maybe they'll be fun to watch one late evening when I have nothing else to do.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about The World's End.
All right, drink up. Let's boo-boo.
And we're back, just like the Five Musketeers.
Three Musketeers, isn't it? Well, nobody knows how many there were, really, do they?
You do know that the Three Musketeers is a fiction, right? Written by Alexander Dumas.
A lot of people are saying that about the Bible these days.
What, that it was written by Alexander Dumas?
Don't be daft, Steve. It was written by Jesus.
Are we there, yeah?
Let's do this!
They haven't seen each other in 20 years.
I'm free to do what I want.
But tonight, they're returning to their hometown to finish the ultimate pub crawl.
This is our chance to finally conquer the Golden Mile. 12 pubs, 12 pints.
And this time, they're going to make it to the last pub, the World's End.
Go!
Come on. What do you recommend?
Beer.
We'll have 5 of those.
The only way to survive the night is to make it all the way to the World's End.
Where are the others?
They're blending in.
Hello, I am a robot.
We are going to get to the World's End if it kills us.
Oh,
no. How would you characterize The World's End as a function of the trilogy of films, Hot Fuzz and Shaun of the Dead? How does it fit?
That's an interesting question. I mean, the whole idea of this Three Flavors Cornetto Trilogy kind of started as a joke when somebody mentioned to them, I think it was after Hot Fuzz, it had to be because they needed to have 2 films by that point. Somebody mentioned that they have this recurring cornetto thing in the 2 films. And he said Edgar Wright thought it'd be really funny. Oh yeah, he made a joke about it and how he's suggested that the 3 flavors of cornetto, referencing Krzysztof Kieslowski's The Three Colors trilogy that he made, and so he. They decided, we are going to have to get this other cornetto flavor into another movies because, of course, Shaun of the Dead had the strawberry cornetto. The Hot Fuzz had the blue cornetto, kind of, red cornetto for blood, blue cornetto for police. And then they had the green mint chocolate chip cornetto. They wanted to do something that had aliens or kind of that whole sci-fi thing. And so they came up with this idea around the time of Hot Fuzz, and they kind of sat on it. And but the films don't really, they're all kind of their own little entities. And I mean, in a way, they just kind of all fit together because the nature of the recurring cornetto and a few of the recurring jokes like the jumping over the fence, the video game that keeps popping up in all of them, many of the cast. But in a way, it's also this trilogy that I don't know if it was intentional, but it's this trilogy about these men who are kind of unable to connect to their world, right? You've got Shaun, who's kind of walking through this zombie life that he's stuck in. He's not quite ready to commit to kind of the business life that his roommate Pete has. He's definitely, I don't think, quite ready to devolve down to Ed's level and become just kind of the stoner. So he's kind of just stuck in this zombie life, not sure where he wants to go, stuck in his romance. Then you have Hot Fuzz, and you've got Nicholas Angel, and he's kind of stuck in his own rut of being, too committed to his job, and he can't turn off, and he is unable to kind of close that side of himself. And then you've got Nick Frost as Danny, who is kind of the totally naive cop, and so Nick has to. Nicholas Angel, he has to kind of learn how to open up, and so there's those two relationships in those two films. The first one, Shaun and his girlfriend, as he kind of learns to kind of come out and make something of his life, and then the second one, you've got Nicholas Angel, who also is so committed to his job that it's closing off his life, and he has to learn how to kind of change his life so that he can actually find more enjoyment in life. And in this film, in The World's End, you've got Gary King, who also is kind of stuck in his own rut in his life, which happens to be this nostalgic past, this pub crawl from 1990 that he's totally stuck in. And he's not able to kind of move out of that and join life. Oddly enough, all of his friends from back then have moved forward, but they're all stuck in their own ruts too. And so in a way, they're all films about these men who are stuck in a place in life that they need to find a way to kind of move through in order to make a better life for themselves.
That's exactly how I would have put it. I mean, I think. To me, there are these. It's a story. They're all stories of transformation, either a failure to transform, or an example of what happens when you transform through this stage of life. In Shaun of the Dead, we have this transformation from youth through sort of taking responsibility and sort of growing up in that first stage of life. And in Hot Fuzz, it's very much a story about career and how do you take responsibility in all of the ways that responsibility affects you in your career. And in The World's End, this is why I've deeply connected to this film, because this is, these are people who have made it through those other two sort of transformations, and here they are as grown-ups trying to figure out what kind of people they want to be in this world, as it is anew. So we'll talk a little bit about the coda at the end of the film and what that means to this overall message of transformation that I think is really important. But in terms of how it fits to me, there are some other angles, I feel like that are important to recognize. The first is the stylistic connection. I mean, just the visual trickery and the style of editing and the momentum, the visual momentum that is created is absolutely consistent across all of these films, and it makes it feel like they are very much part of the same universe. Even though we see aliens in The World's End, it wouldn't be a far stretch to see a zombie on a street corner, just because of the attention to the style similarities, I think, that exist. At the same time, there is a disconnect between the genre mashup that they do. This sort of take on the zombie mashup in Shaun of the Dead is very different from the their take on the kind of American action film, and the contrast between this British community in Hot Fuzz and the big American action extravaganza, which I think makes it so funny. And then The World's End take on the sci-fi classics. So I think I think all of those things come together to make this ironically well-suited trilogy. That I would never have expected to be a trilogy, but when I watch them back to back, they feel like hand to glove.
Yeah, they absolutely do. I on opening night, I actually went to see it when they had the Cornetto Trilogy night, where you could actually go and watch all three films, and they just played them all back to back, and it was a great experience seeing them all back to back, because it's not quite Lord of the Rings where you see, they all three pieces fit together, but you're right, they do feel so much like siblings, and they're meant to kind of have that consistent vibe across all three.
Yeah, that's definitely the word for it. Now, of course, in The World's End, we haven't really talked about the story. It's on its surface, and I think the first half of the film really is a pretty simple story of these, 5 friends, led by Simon Pegg's character, Gary, who come together for a 20-year reunion to do this pub crawl.
Yeah,
and so I think the first half of the story is really, it raises the question: can you go home again? In so many different ways. Every kind of interaction between Gary and each of his friends here, played brilliantly by, let's see, Martin Freeman, obviously Nick Frost, Oh gosh, help me. See, I closed my tab.
Patty Considine.
Yep, Patty Considine and
Simon Pegg and
oh, come on. Oh, good grief.
It's Eddie Marsan.
Yes, Eddie Marsan.
Yeah.
So great.
Yep.
And so each one of these, but what's so interesting about them is that all of their interactions with each other tend to kind of demonstrate a great affinity for one another, even if sort of, kind of backhanded affinity. But none of them really seem to like Gary.
Yeah, it's funny. Well, I mean, it's clear that Gary, like from the outset, Gary is that friend who borrowed money and never returned it. Sold your stuff to go buy drugs. I mean, he's really that bad friend that you all kind of want to forget about. And it's clear that these guys have a totally different recollection of Gary than he has of them. And I think that they would all have been content to just continue moving forward with their life if Gary hadn't brought them all together for this pub crawl, because none of them were in a place where they were stuck in that nostalgic mindset where they needed to reconnect like that. And none of them really even stayed in touch with each other, it sounds like. But it's easy for them to fall back into that friendship like it is after meeting an old friend again,
Right. Yeah.
But Gary is just a mess.
He's a total mess. How familiar does this feel to you? Like when you watch this film, what was your initial connection to it?
It's funny because Gary is a hard character to connect to because, talk about, saving the cat. There's not a lot to like about Gary other than the fact that Simon Pegg plays him and he's a funny character. But I mean, he is kind of a despicable guy. He's lying. I mean, he goes so far as to lie about his mother dying. I mean, it's just the things that he lies about are horrible. He's a terrible, terrible guy. But if there's anything that I think helps you connect to him, and I know it worked for me brilliantly, is that whole open and that nostalgic feel of this vibe of what our this pub crawl back in 1990 was like, and what a great time we had, and that whole sequence at the beginning of the film that is kind of a flashback, which interestingly and I think smartly, Edgar Wright actually uses this, I think, in all three films. He really walks you through what you're going to be seeing over the course of the rest of the entire film in that opening, 5 or 7 minutes, however long it is. And you see like all the different things as people, fall out of the pub crawl and all that stuff. It's just funny how much it mirrors everything. But you get that opening, which is brilliant. And then it's just like a smash cut to Gary sitting in basically like a rehab center, telling this story, reflecting on the great times, and really how he doesn't have that anymore. And here he is sitting in this circle, spilling his guts to this group of interestingly zombie-like people. And then one of them is like, "Well, do you regret it? Do you wish that you had finished it?" Which triggers his idea to actually do this whole thing. But it's a great way to begin this film. For me, that really connected me to him. Realizing that this is a man who's lost in life. He's disconnected. He hasn't been able to get himself out of that nostalgic place. And there are those things that you have in life that come up that totally trigger those nostalgic memories that you have. That's like, oh gosh, if only it was like that. That was such a great time. That was such a great place in my life. And it can be dangerous to kind of get lost in that because you're living in the now. You have to, like Sam, Rosamund Pike's character says later, you have to be, we have to be moving forward. You can't be moving backward.
It's I love how you put that. That's exactly my sense of his character in particular. And I would just add, he is, a despicable person, but that opening sequence is the gun on the mantelpiece for me in terms of his character arc, because even through all of his despicableness, through the first and second act, we get that sense that he was that there is hope, there is redemption, because we get that sense of nostalgia, we get that sense of importance, and he was already in rehab. in some case, right? And so we know that there is some hope for him to come to a broader realization about himself. And at least that's how I walked away with that opening sequence, which allowed me to buy all of his other, shenanigans in a way that that I think without that opening sequence and that sort of sense of nostalgia that I think for any of us who kind of grew up, sort of found ourselves in the 80s, it really relates.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just rehab. I mean, from later when his sleeves are pulled back, I mean, it looks to me like his arms are all bandaged up, like he had recently tried committing suicide. And I mean, he was really in a dark place. And so he really needs something to kind of get out of that. It's like he's trying to connect to the past, but through that, it ends up being a trigger to kind of help him finally move forward. Oddly, it does take some an alien invasion to spur it on, but yeah.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the town.
It is interesting going back to this Newton Haven, this town that they're going to, and I think that it does really ring a bell. Like anytime you go back to a place from your past that you hadn't visited in a while, whether it's generally I guess like kind of your childhood home. You go back and it keeps moving forward, but in your mind, it's locked in that place where it was when you left. Or even like maybe like in the case of this, some of those greatest memories that you actually had there. And so it really strikes me as, this is exactly how it is. And I think they very smartly portrayed it where it's like you do get stuck with those memories, and coming back to a place, it can be very hard because things are different and they're bound to be. That's just the nature of it. And, I like that they used the nature of that whole thing about the town and everyone kind of being the same and all that stuff. It was a very smart move on their part to kind of tie all of that together with this alien invasion, which coincidentally happened. The meteor arrived that night they were doing the pub crawl. And so really since then, it's been, the town has been slowly getting taken over by these blanks. And I think it was a great idea to tie it together because it is kind of like wiping all personality from this town. So it becomes kind of a blank in and of itself.
It really does, and I wonder, and it's some of the criticism that I think I've heard of the film. I think to me it sort of misses the point. I had read that what
I was going to say, the film misses the point, or the criticism misses the point? The
criticism misses the point. Because to me, what I think works well is what many people think is sort of off the mark, which is that the film, right about halfway through, turns into sort of a different film. What we have in the beginning, particularly with related to the setting of this town, and addressing that question that we brought up earlier, can you go home again? They get to this town, which is a quaint British town, and instead of being a quaint British town, they go from pub to pub, and all the pubs are identical. Mm-hmm. And it is that feeling when you go to your hometown where your once youthful hangouts are now Starbucks, and they're all identical Starbucks. All of the people in the pubs are the same. All the people, they all look like sort of equivalent Starbucks coffee hipsters, and so it is that sense that what was here I can never have again from this moment. And yet Gary King's effort to kind of overlook that, and just even as his friends around him are saying, gosh, you really are blind to what you are seeing here.
Yeah,
as every beer on tap is the same in every pub, you're missing that. And then the movie changes, and we realize that there's this old blank conceit, and that they've been taken over by aliens. And some of the criticism is, you already made the point. This is you now have a second film. And I don't get why you need to go to such extremes for the alien invasion and make it this kind of a movie. It kind of loses some of its depth. But to me, that taking it to that extreme and that sort of hyper characterization of the same message from the first act of the film, I think really works, and that's what actually makes sort of a bittersweet emotional story funny.
Yeah. Yeah, and it makes it, it takes it from being what could be, just a simple little Mike Leigh film taking place about, old friends coming together, reliving their past, only to realize that they have to pay attention to their future. That could totally just sell as a Mike Leigh film, and it could work. But by throwing it into this genre, I think I think that's what Edgar Wright is good at. He likes these films. You can tell he's a passionate filmmaker who loves movies and loves making movies that kind of reflect the movies that he loves. And I think he could go and make a Mike Leigh type of movie, but I think what he really enjoys is these genre movies. And I think what he does so well is he takes these great genre tropes and adds all these other elements that are much more serious in tone. We've had that in all of these films. I mean, not so much in Hot Fuzz, but you still have some of that, the character development as Nicholas Angel is trying to kind of open up and not just be on all the time, but he needs to kind of shut off and open up to other people. And in the first film, you've got Shaun, who is he just can't quite cross that line to the commitment that he needs to do with his girlfriend. And so he's very smart at how he puts these strong emotional stories with these really interesting relationships in genre films that normally wouldn't have that. And that's why I think this is a very effective film. And I think those people are daft and they're missing the point.
Not to put too fine a point on it. Yes, I agree with you entirely. Okay, so the boys, his buds.
Absolutely great casting. I mean, Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, I think, first of all, it was a very clever idea to kind of switch up the types of characters they were playing, because Simon really has always been kind of a little more of the serious character who's trying to figure stuff out, and Nick Frost has always been kind of the bumbling guy or the loser. And it was great seeing Nick Frost playing he's a partner in this law firm. I mean, he's like really successful. He's having troubles with his marriage, which is likely the reason that he's decided to do this pub crawl against probably his better judgment. But it's so nice seeing the change of those two, and seeing Simon Pegg being this struggling loser that it is kind of hard to identify with him, but he is such an interesting character. I really enjoy seeing those two switched around like that.
I really did too, and I think I already feel like I had a great deal of respect for Simon Pegg. Just as a comic actor, I deeply enjoy watching him. He's one of those very charismatic physical actors for me. I deeply enjoy watching him on screen, whether he's playing Scotty or Shaun. But I already sort of knew coming into it that I was going to like this character of Gary. But I really was surprised by Nick Frost, who I did not have a sense that he was much beyond what I'd seen of his past work. Right. He's kind of a goofy comic actor.
Right.
Very physical, very, kind of competent comic actor, but, how much range was in there. And I was delighted to see what he did in this film as just the level of sort of contrast that he brought to that first hour of the film. Right before he rips his shirt off, I think that's when things kind of turned.
Or when he downs the 5 shots,
yeah,
which is
yeah,
best, where they all turn to him and he's just like, oh, as he's like, and he's been a teetotaler, for practically this whole time, or I think since like the late 90s, and he's just like pounding these shots in this like almost like this orgasmic way because he hasn't had a drink in so long. Oh, that was good.
Yeah, this is
and he's great. He is great in fight scenes. I had so much fun watching Nick Frost in the fight scenes, particularly the big fight,
yeah,
in the Beehive when they're fighting against Pierce Brosnan, their old former teacher, and everyone keeps coming into the bar, and he just picks up these chairs and just starts railing on people. It's so much fun to watch. I mean, I loved the fight scenes in this film. As a total aside, we can get to that later.
Well, okay, if you
or we can
wanna-
talk about them now.
Wait, you brought it up, and now I'm excited to talk about fighting.
They were great.
They
fights.
were great.
So much fun.
The bathroom though was my favorite fight scene. That was hands down my favorite. That was, you know what was so great about that fight scene is that it really it felt like they took these goofy guys and really taught them how to fight.
Yeah.
Like it didn't feel like it was. It felt like they left the camera running for a lot of really long shots.
It was so well planned out. The length of all of these the fights, and you're right. I mean, just the shots were so long, and it was so great to see how long they went on. They used their stunt coordinator Bradley James Allen, who I believe that he came on with Scott Pilgrim when Edgar Wright, after he did Hot Fuzz, he went and did Scott Pilgrim, and did a great job on that film. And he's very, very long line of stunt work and stunt coordinating and choreographing all this sort of stuff. He did just a fantastic job, and just goes to show that you don't have to be cutting every 2 seconds in a fight scene in order to make it an engrossing fight scene. When you can actually coordinate it so that everybody is doing the stuff they need to do, you can have these long, long takes that are just full of action and just interesting things happening. And you see all these people doing it, and you really see them actually doing it. I loved that, and it was so nice to see.
Well, and I think it's important to note, this was a bathroom in a pub, a small bathroom in a pub, and 10 big people were fighting all at once in this pub in a very constrained space.
Right.
And they were moving the camera around. Like it just felt really organic. It felt really kind of unrestrained. And I think, ultimately, to your point about stunt choreography, very, very competent. Like it really felt like it felt very natural. It didn't feel like goofy comic actors like doing it. It was totally out of context to have such a great fight scene in a movie like this.
It was, but somehow it just felt right.
Yeah, no, it just felt
it was
right.
great. And I really loved the fight going back to the one in the Beehive. I loved that one also because it did bring it up a notch in some of its more goofiness, because by this point they've really kind of learned to twist the melon, as they always say, like to pop these little action figure toy heads off of these characters. Martin Freeman's running around with his head, half of his head missing. And then you've got Simon Pegg there. And it totally goes back to the Jackie Chan drunken master sorts of fight scenes where he's got his beer in his hand and he's doing everything he can to just down this beer and avoid it from getting all the beer sloshed out. And it pops up sometimes, and he's got to catch the beer. And it just took it to these really fun levels that made them so fun to watch.
It absolutely did. That I think was a real highlight of this film. Yeah. Apart from my old man softy love for the cultural elements, this was just a treat to watch.
Yes, it was.
Okay, so the other boys, Patty Considine, Martin Freeman, and Eddie Marzan.
Yeah, all of them are just such fun, great actors to watch, and Patty Considine was great in Hot Fuzz, and he's been great in so many great things. I mean, I still think I don't think my favorite film of his has been beaten as far as his performances, which is In America, which I just think was one of the most astounding films to come out in the aughts decade. I just really, really love that film, and I think he was amazing in it and deserved more kudos from that film. But I
noticed you did use the word aughts.
Well, I don't know what to call them. The double O's.
Yeah, that was awkward. I just wanted to note that.
Did I make things awkward again?
You just made it real. All right, go ahead. You were saying Patty Considine.
Yeah, but I mean, he's an absolutely fantastic actor, and he's just great to see. He's great to bring into whatever sort of film that he's in, and I had a great time watching him. I think that a different filmmaker, different screenwriters may have actually told the film from his point of view, because if you look at it, his character Steve, is the one who's kind of got the romance connection in the film, and you could easily have that a stronger element in this whole story of him coming back to town, finding his long lost love, dealing with all of his friends. And then in this case, it would be like some are more successful than him, some are less successful than him. I could totally see this film being written from his perspective, and I really enjoy the fact that they didn't. I enjoy the fact that they wrote it from the perspective of the guy who's kind of at the bottom of the heap. But not to say anything bad about Paddy Considine. I think that he is fantastic, and he easily could have carried the film. So
I agree with that. I don't have anything else to add. I want to talk about Martin Freeman.
Yes, good old Bilbo.
Bilbo, but he's one of these funny actors, right? I mean, I feel like I met him in Shaun of the Dead, right? He had a little cameo. But really got to know him in Arthur Dent. He's another one like Simon Pegg that I feel like is extremely charismatic, awkwardly charismatic on screen. He is great in everything I feel like I've seen him in. And then he went and did Sherlock Holmes.
Sherlock.
Yeah, Sherlock, and he plays obviously Dr. Watson, and I think his performance in that series is stunning. Yeah. It's in terms of his work as an actor, I think he's vastly deeper than Bilbo and some of his other stuff. I just think it's really he's a fantastic actor, and so it's such a treat to see him playing this one of the kind of ancillary characters here who gets doubled and broken and becomes kind of a comic foil for the rest of the alien invasion in this film. And I think he just, he played it so well.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a great actor. He's always fun to see. I think I first fell in love with him watching the British version of The Office.
Oh my goodness. I totally forgot that.
Yeah, he was great in that.
So great.
Yeah.
He was
Tim.
He was Tim.
Yep.
Oh man, I got to go back and catch that again.
Good stuff. He's great.
Yeah, he's really, really great. Okay, then we have let's see.
Eddie Marsan.
Eddie Marsan, yeah.
And it's funny because Eddie Marsan, I mean, he has been around for a very long time. I mean, mid 80s is when he started. He's one of those guys that I know I've seen in things, just all across the board from the 90s, like The Man Who Knew Too Little, the kind of funny little spy spoof that Bill Murray did, all the way through, more recent films, Gangs of New York, and the film that has totally stuck in my head. Unfortunately. Oh, and then he was in The Illusionist.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we can't forget The Illusionist.
Yeah. The film that, unfortunately for him, has totally stuck in my head as the Eddie Marsan that I never want to watch on film again is the character that he played in Happy Go Lucky, the going back to Mike Leigh, the Mike Leigh film that came out a few years ago. He was this driving instructor teaching the other character how to drive, and he had the worst teeth, and they made his teeth just look so awful. And he was such an evil, like hateful, angry character that I've had that stuck in my head for so long, and I've just not wanted to ever like him again because he was such a repulsive character in that. And now I'm just like, oh. Now I can finally like him again because I loved him so much in this film.
Oh, well, I on behalf of Eddie Marsan, I'm relieved that you've come around.
Yes, you can tell him that I'm back in his court.
He is also, we should add, fantastic in. He was fantastic in Sherlock Holmes, the other Sherlock Holmes.
Right, that's right.
Guy Ritchie's Sherlock Holmes as Inspector Lestrade. I pretty much, if you're an actor and you're British, you're likely connected to a Sherlock Holmes property.
I wonder if he and Martin had little Sherlock Holmes conversations.
Yes, right. That's right. It's like if you were an actor in the 80s, you probably were on Love Boat. Love.
Yes, who wasn't?
Or Fantasy Island. You have some sort of a Ricardo Montalban connection.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, what else do we have to talk about here?
Just real quick going through, I'm not going to read all the names of the actors that have been across all three films, or at least in a couple of the films, but there are a lot of familiar faces that you see from Hot Fuzz in this, that you see from Shaun of the Dead. People that may have been in a very small role, like Mary the zombie in Shaun of the Dead, who's ended up being one of the people in the rehab meeting at the beginning. Just so many people across all the films, and I love that Edgar Wright goes back and reuses people, even from Spaced, his TV show. There's just so many people, and I love that he kind of has created this family, and they keep coming back, and they keep coming back, and I think it's just so fun to see so many faces, and talk about another great way to kind of tie all of this kind of trilogy feel together. I think that's a great way to do it.
I feel like we can't. You mentioned Spaced. If you haven't gone back to watch Spaced, it's available. I think as an entire series on. An entire series. It's like 14 episodes on Hulu, and it's absolutely worth watching. Even if you don't find it funny, which I do. I think it's really quite charming. But if you don't find it funny, it's really fun to watch all of these people that we see kind of progress through their careers. I love this. It's like a family tree of the Edgar Wright family.
Yeah,
But I wanted to talk about Bill Nye, who
of course
we don't see him in this film. We hear him. He is he's the voice of Network.
Mm-hmm.
But oh my goodness, that guy is wow.
Yeah, he's great.
He is really fantastic, and love that he took on this film as part of it. He's been great in all the stuff that he's done. He was the stepdad in Shaun of the Dead, and he was the what was his rank?
He was the what was it? What's the rank? I don't know, because I don't know.
Yeah, he had a uniform in Shaun of the Dead. All right,
he was the head.
Yeah,
the head guy.
What do we call that? Probably had a sir.
He was the chief
inspector Kenneth.
Yeah.
Chief inspector. He's chief inspector.
There you go.
And of course Davy Jones. Wow. Wonderful effects on that face. Okay, so there's Bill Nye. He's one of my favorites. Who else stands out to you? Pierce Brosnan. What?
Yeah, it's now they've. I don't recall any Bonds in Shaun of the Dead, but they've had two of the Bonds in their films.
That's
now.
right, because they had Timothy Dalton. Right?
Yeah, the Daltonator, and it's just I don't know. I love seeing Pierce Brosnan in this, and I've got to say it's awfully freaky to have this wonderfully kind of. It just felt so British, the way that he's kind of got that little goatee, and it's like he's got the pipe, and you just expect him to be sitting by a fire. And the way that he sits there, and then he like stands up, and they all do this thing where they've got to like smack the wall, and I don't quite understand what it is, but even like in the bar fight, like one of the guys has to bend backward and kick the wall before they all start fighting, and I haven't figured out exactly what it is, but Pierce Brosnan like smashes his elbow into like the little alarm on the wall, and then he raises his arm up in that Invasion of the Body Snatchers like way, and it's just like rah! And then all the blue light comes out of his eyes and his mouth, and it's really freaky. I love it.
Totally freaky.
Yeah.
He was the character that felt the most sort of out of place for me. I don't know if it was that he was too well known, or too well known not in the family. But it was an out of place thing. I don't know if that it did not. I guess what I'm saying is it didn't serve his casting, and that didn't serve me.
It didn't feel like he had big enough a role.
Yeah, maybe that's it.
To have warranted casting him, right?
Yeah,
I can see that. I guess it never bothered me.
It didn't. In terms of, God, I'm nitpicking a movie that I really I loved, but yeah, whatever.
Rosamund Pike, I just love. I think she's great in this, and gives a great grounding presence to the film as the woman that both Gary and Steve are kind of in love with. And I think that she has a great presence, and I love that they have this comedic Casablanca moment talking about the disabled toilets. It's just like one of the most absurd things. It's just like, we'll always have the disabled.
That's so awful.
And they play it so well. And I tell you, there's I don't think I had ever seen her play in a comedy before. You know, I mean, Pride and Prejudice, she's great in that. Jack Reacher. I mean, Die Another Day, which was not a great film.
I was going to say, we should add, she was actually in a Bond film with Pierce Brosnan.
Pierce Brosnan, right. So she's a great actress. I've always enjoyed her. I take it back. She was in Johnny English Reborn. So, you know, she spent her comedic time with Rowan Atkinson, I guess. So.
I don't know that that's necessary.
I don't know if that's a good thing or not. Oh.
She was in, speaking of crossovers, I hadn't caught this. Bill Nye, was Hephaestus in Wrath of the Titans, and she was Andromeda.
That's right. That's right. Well, you know, like we said, you know, these British people, they all end up in all these movies together. You know, if another Harry Potter was coming out, they'd probably all be in that together.
That's right. You know,
It's a small island.
It is a small island. Very large kingdom, very small island. Yes. So okay. Well, I like Rosamund Pegg. She was great. Although, you know, I did miss Liz. I was kind of hoping that the love interest would be Liz. What was her name from Shaun of the Dead?
I don't know, but she was great too.
Yeah.
She would have been a great option.
Yeah. Okay, so that's The World End. We're very happy with that film.
Yep. See ya.
Good talk, everybody. Bill Pope, cinematography. I think just in terms of establishing the stylistic vision and kind of leveraging the directing style of Edgar Wright, I think he did a fantastic job.
Well, and he's a cinematographer. I mean, he has been around for quite a while.
Long time, yeah.
And he worked on the Matrix films. And speaking of, you know, going back to the stunt choreography and everything, he's a cinematographer who also really knows how to adapt the camera work to fit with these stunts. So it's not just about the stunt coordinator making sure that they're doing these great stunts, but you have a cinematographer and you have a director who know how to put it all together. And all of that works together to create great stunt scenes. And he did it in Scott Pilgrim versus the World with Edgar Wright, bringing some great fight scenes in that. And obviously in all the Matrix films and everything he's done since. He's really good at that.
He has a fantastically diverse filmography.
Yeah.
When you look, I mean, some of my very favorite films are you know, Bound is on this list. You look at that he sandwiched the Matrix between Freaks and Geeks and Bedazzled. But he also did the great. I think I may be the only person who really liked this film, with the Ben Stiller and Bill Pullman film, Zero Effect. Yeah.
How was it?
I really liked that film, and I don't think anybody else did.
I remember watching it.
Right. But he also he did Team America World Police, one of the most I think
that's right,
complicated action films, we could say.
Well, and you know, speaking of Edgar Wright, I mean, Sam Raimi was really kind of a big influence on young Edgar Wright.
Right.
I mean, he saw Evil Dead 2, and that really was something that kind of triggered. He saw Evil Dead 2 he loved, but he actually saw a BBC.
Look at Army of Darkness, a Sam Raimi film with Bill Pope cinematography, and he gets Bill Pope, on his film.
Yeah, and he had seen a BBC documentary about Sam Raimi and the filmmaker and kind of how he made his stuff. And I mean, Bill Pope, I mean, Darkman, Army of Darkness, Spider-Man 2. I don't think he did the first Spider-Man, but he did Spider-Man 2 and 3 with Sam Raimi. So he's definitely somebody who's been with him quite a while. And Barry Sonnenfeld. So you can tell this is a cinematographer who's really used to working with people who have very alive cameras. and Edgar Wright, somebody who kind of was a student of those people who really liked those alive cameras, it comes across in his films. His cameras are always alive, and it makes his films so visually exciting to watch.
Well, look at what a fantastic case example is The Spirit, Frank Miller's film, which I think has a kind of exactly that. Not a terrific film to me, but a visually really stunning. Talk about alive cameras. I think that really is apt.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So really, it turns out I think we like that too. We like him too.
Yeah, absolutely. And everything else, the production design, the costumes, everything I think on this really came together and just it all pieced together to make a really solid film. And something else, Stephen Price did the music, which I think is very effective in this, but Edgar Wright, and I don't remember if we talked about this on the other two films, but he really knows how to put a soundtrack together.
He did. They made I think he's one of those actors where music plays an enormous role, or one of those writers and directors where music plays an enormous role in the writing and production of. He's very much sort of the Quentin Tarantino kind of, house of music driving inspiration for the words.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny. If you look through the list of songs on the soundtrack, and it's funny how much they all fit in with it. The I'm Free. Even Loaded, the Primal Scream song that begins with that whole bit of dialogue from what's his name's movie, the Wild Angels. I'm blanking on the actor. But anyway, that whole, so what is it that you want to do? We want to be free. We want to be free to do what we want to do, and we want to get loaded, and we want to have a good time, and that's what we're going to do, which is great that they begin the film with that song, and then that's the line that Gary, king of the humans, ends up delivering to the aliens at the end of the film. It's fantastic. But going back to the songs, I'm Free, So Young, Come Home, Do You Remember the First Time, Fool's Gold, Get a Life, This Is How It Feels, Step Back in Time, Join Our Club, Here's Where the Story Ends. It was funny. And then this Corrosion, the Sisters of Mercy song that they end up using, has that great choral beginning to the song, which they tie in so perfectly as he's like running to the world's end, the final pub. He uses his music really effectively.
Let's talk about the end. Speaking of the end, now you're talking about not the end, but you're talking about kind of the coda. Yeah, the coda.
Right? Yeah.
The end. The end was a big action end. There was a nice speech, and I bought it. I was into it. It was fun. Mm-hmm. And then it actually, we actually see the action play out, and the world. They make good on the promise of the title. The world does end.
Absolutely.
Which I think is there are a number of things going on there. First of all, I feel like we use those words intentionally. He does make good on this promise that you are not only, once you find out it's an alien story and you put that together with the title of the film, we're gonna go all the way, and I think that's something that Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg have never really shied away from. Right. Some have said that was a bridge too far. That coda actually puts, as we say, too fine a point on the story of the film, and that we're already in this sort of vaudevillian kind of sci-fi mashup by actually making this British town filled with aliens in the first place. Do we really need to take it to that distant future? What is your sense of the end as we see, Nick Frost and Gary, or in Simon Pegg's characters, as they in this post-apocalyptic end of world kind of sequence?
Well, it's really interesting. It almost feels not. It feels tacked on a little bit, but at the same time, I've seen the film 4 times now. I definitely like it. The more I watch the ending, the more I feel that it's the right ending. I find it interesting that, we see Gary and Andy finally make up. Gary finally apologizes, as they're sitting on the hill overlooking the burning remains of their old hometown, Newton Haven. And then we kind of, flash forward to, as the dark days have fallen and the blanks have kind of stood up and started walking around. They don't have any connection to the network anymore. So they're just kind of these shells of what they were, which was just shells anyway. And now everybody's living, and it's basically like, what's that show on that's right now? Revolution, is that what it's called? Yeah. It's like that, where there's no power at all anymore, and people have kind of gone back to the olden days pre-electricity and just basically surviving. The thing that I really like about it, I mean, it does kind of feel, it still feels a little out of place, but I think what I really like about it is how it leaves us with Gary, which is, in a way, he never has really changed. He ends up teaming up with his old mates, which all are the younger blank versions of all his old friends from 1990. So he's essentially reliving that, and now he's doing it in a way where he's basically having a good time. They're playing King Arthur as, he's walking around with the sword, and it's straight out of something like Django Unchained, where, we won't serve blanks here. And so they kind of hack at everybody, or it's such a strange little place, but I think it's a fitting conclusion for Gary. And I think we do need that through line to see, okay, he's kind of gotten through the issues with these friends, and he's found a way to kind of move past the pain. He's apologized to Andy. He's finally able to kind of get out of that mindset where he needs to be his only happy place was 1990, and now in a way, because the world's ended and really kind of taken him back to Arthurian times, which he mocks earlier because they can't drink tap water, and of course now they're going to a bar to order tap water. It ends up being this kind of like cathartic experience for him, and seeing him now the leader of this merry band, it just ends up being this character catharsis that, for me, I feel ends up working, and I can see why it's tacked on, but I do find it good.
Mm-hmm. I do too. And it took me a while, I think, to get there. When I saw the film the very first time, I felt like it just didn't square. And yet, to your point about what we need out of Gary, mm-hmm. What I think this makes sort of the Oreo cookie of the film complete,
Yeah.
That we look at this one way. Gary was a man who was always just out of place. Like he couldn't grow up because he wasn't really equipped with the sort of sociocultural skills or worldview to be able to grow up and take part in the world at large. He wasn't able to cope with loss and guilt, and in that respect, the world had to catch up with him. Right, as it fell apart. But on the other side, he was a guy who, who couldn't figure out what he wanted to do in this next chapter of his life, and I think that last sequence was a real celebration of a guy who finally was able to make a choice and take an active role in defining his own future and figuring out what role he wanted to play in the universe around him, in his world. And I think that's such a wonderful metaphor for so many of so many people who are really struggling to make just those choices. I love the message that it sends, that this is a film with it's a weird film. It's a weird journey that these guys go on, full of very weird, strange surprises and big action sequences and some clumsy buddy dynamics. And yet, the end, there is a moral to this film, which is all about ownership and responsibility. And I think, to me, that carries through so nicely. To the overall, as we talked in the beginning, to the overall thread that connects the three Cornetto films.
Yeah, absolutely.
How does this sit with you in terms, if you had to stack rank the three of them, how would this sit with you?
I've been deliberating over that, partly because I know we're going to have to flick chart it soon, and partly because I'm so torn. I love them all, and I love them all in such different ways. Hot Fuzz is such an easy one for me to put on and watch. And it's interesting watching them all back to back at this kind of this Three Flavors Cornetto Trilogy evening that the theaters had. I did find myself drawn even more back to Shaun of the Dead, which I really think just out of the gate, he really just made just a fantastic film. This one feels the most grown up to me. It feels like there's a little more deliberate thought put into kind of these older characters reflecting on their lives. I really like that. I think that the nature of Gary King of The Humans made it a little harder to like at first because he is such an unlikable character. I liked all the other characters more than I liked him. As time has worn on and as I've seen it more often, I really do like Gary, and I really kind of understand the place he's coming from. I'm so torn though. I still feel like they're all really great films. I don't know. I'm at a loss. I'm hedging here. I feel like I'm still gonna say Hot Fuzz for the fun, Shaun of the Dead for the great story. And this one, I just think for more of the little more maturity, I guess. So they're all up there.
Well, and that makes it's hard. But I'm kind of preparing myself for the flick chart too, and I'm a little bit frustrated because as I look back, my ranking of these three films, I don't think reflects what our ranking is. I still somehow Hot Fuzz ended up ahead of Shaun of the Dead for me, and I think it was because of some horse trading that we did between us, and I'm okay with that. I can live with that. But for me, I think this film, when we talk about a throwback, when we talked about Raiders of the Lost Ark, we talked a lot about kind of the importance of a film and how much it hits us. It connects with us based on where we are in our lives.
Right.
For me, Raiders of the Lost Ark was all about, my relationship with my dad. And that movie ended up being very, very important to me. It makes it very hard to be critical of it because I have such an emotional connection to it. And I think this film is very reflective of that same sort of sentiment, that this film and the questions that it raises for me personally are so present with this following this character of making these active choices in his life and figuring out what to do with the next half of there are a lot of years left for old Gary, and what's he going to do? How's he going to take this role? And to me that gives this film, that personal connection gives this film the most resonance of the three of them. And so to me, and it wasn't like this when I first saw it, but to me this is I think the best of the best of the three great films.
I think you're right. I think within my thinking, the added maturity to this one will kind of make it stand up above the others as far as kind of a great film goes. But you're right. It's like the best of the three.
Yeah. All right. Hey, shall we do the next thing? You have another. You probably have some other things to talk about.
Well, got to talk numbers.
Oh yeah, we should do that too.
The conveniently, since it came out this year, I don't have to really adjust for inflation on this one, but it's still on there. This film cost $20 million to make, and they had an additional $15 million in their prints and advertising budget. So $35 million is what they spent on this film, and the domestic gross here in the States was and it's still in theaters. So these numbers are bound to change, and I'll try to update it once it's left theaters to get the final numbers in here. It's just under 25 million domestically. Internationally, it's almost at 18 million. So it's around 42 million right now. I'm guessing it'll keep growing a little bit. So, it's done pretty well for a little British film, it's done well enough for itself for Edgar Wright to keep his day job. Right now it's ranked at number 67 on our ranking of films as far as they go per on the profit per finished minute.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
Let's flick chart it.
where can they find us?
I was going to do that. I just wanted to make sure you were ready. Are you ready?
I'm getting it ready.
All right. So
I'm ready.
if you happen to be at an internet machine, you should head over to flickchart.com/thenextreel, and there you can see the golden list. And this is a big one. This is number 100. Even though we already have more than 100 films on there, this is the number. If we're purists, this is the next reel's 100, and so this now we officially are. This is the golden list.
Yep.
Our top 100 films, and I have a feeling this one's not going to be. Is going to be on that list for a while.
I have a feeling it will. Ready?
Oh, I'm so ready.
The World's End. I was going to say the next reel. The World's End or Inside Man.
All right.
It has to be The World's End.
I think it does.
Totally does. The World's see it goes right to these hard ones. The World's End or The Social Network.
Ooh, that actually that becomes kind of a that's a definitive choice. I think it's got to be The World's End for me.
It's a tricky one, man.
Because if it is in fact better than, if it's worse than The Social Network, then by definition it will be worse than Hot Fuzz.
Well, then I guess it has to be The World's End. We'll put it down as World's End. We know that there's some flick chart works.
I just blew your mind a little bit.
You did. Whoa.
Uh-huh.
All right, The World's End or The Treasure of the Sierra Madre?
Oh. Well, I'm going to say The World's End.
I will too. It is it's rough putting like a brand new film up against like an old classic.
I know.
Yeah, it's like, what are you going to do? Flick chart. The World's End or No Country for Old Men? Ugh. That's a tough one. I will say No Country for
I'm going to No Country for Old Men. I can't quite go that far.
Oh, otherwise it's going to be right up at number one.
This is gonna be tough.
World's End or Seven?
Seven.
Yeah. The World's End or Zodiac? It's got to be Zodiac.
Yeah. God, these. I think I know where this one's going to land. All right.
The World's End or The Sting?
The Sting.
All right, number 14 out of 109.
Wow. Yeah, so, okay. So, this is the curse of flick chart. It can't necessarily, it's not all things to all people. But honestly, that feels pretty good.
Yeah, it does. It feels good. I mean, we have so many movies on here that we like. It's hard to
how are you gonna
always get it right. Yeah.
How would you possibly do that?
How would you possibly? Yeah.
Okay.
So two last quotes from the film that I just think are are great. Good ways to bring us out of this number 100. Nothing suggested in the last 10 minutes has been better than Smashy Smashy Eggman.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay.
And then the last one, which I think is another great moment that they had for Andy, that I think is an incredibly romantic gesture. I just punched my wife's wedding ring out of a robot's tummy.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Great stuff.
Yeah, and puts it on with his mouth. That was great.
Good stuff. Great movie.
Great movie.
Good finish to the, finally, a good finish to the Three Flavors Cornetto Trilogy.
We'll always have the disabled. All right. So next, where do we go from here? What is next week? What is episode 101 after the prisoners this weekend?
That's right. After the prisoners, we're starting with. I guess we're doing a little bit of a horror jump before October starts. We're actually going to jump back in time a little bit and talk about the classic drive-in film, The Blob.
This isn't the remake of The Blob, people. Don't mistake us.
Yeah.
You want to keep up, you got to go all the way back.
Back to, what was it? 1958.
56? 58? Was it really?
1950. 58.
1958. That's right. This is the classic Steve McQueen, directed by Irving S. Yeaworth.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic.
You know, I've never actually seen it, so I'm quite looking forward to delving into the gooiness of the.
There is a lot of seeping.
There is.
In this, it's you know what I love about this film. Obviously, we'll talk more about this. Is that this is one of those films that takes something that is inherently not scary and makes a bunch of people try to be scared of it.
That's right.
That's what makes this a real treat to watch.
Very fun.
Yeah.
I'm very much looking forward to it.
Absolutely. All right. Until this weekend,
let's boo boo.
Let's boo boo to the lager end.
Or the bitter end.
It is hard to believe that we have been having in-depth weekly conversations about movies since 2011.
So many great conversations over the years about so many great movies.
And some stinkers.
Well, true. But you know, producing this show week after week requires a ton of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our Originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Just visit thenextreel.com/originals. Your purchases made through our links give us a small commission at no extra cost to you and allow us to keep having these great discussions.
In Season 3, we covered even more great adaptations like The Night of the Hunter and It Happened One Night, both part of our Couples on the Run series.
We talked about No Country for Old Men. The Coen brothers so rarely adapt someone else's work.
We had some fun rom-com adaptations like About a Boy, based on the Nick Hornby novel, and Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist, adapted from Rachel Cohn and David Levithan's book.
In our terribly and naively named foreign language series, we discussed The Brilliant City of God and The Diving Bell and the Butterfly, which I won't ever be able to watch again, ever.
But could you read the original memoir?
I don't know, maybe?
We had our Richard Dysart series with adaptations like The Day of the Locust and Being There.
Plus, we had that fantastic interview with the man himself.
The one where we had him sit on the floor?
Because this chair was so squeaky. Good times.
We did our first Tom Hanks series with Forrest Gump, adapted from Winston Groom's novel, plus Apollo 13, based on Lost Moon by Jim Lovell.
And we did another year series looking at films from 1981, including Das Boot, Gallipoli, and Thief, all based on books.
Listeners can dive deeper into all of these original stories and more at thenextreel.com/originals. Every book, play,
movie,
video game. You bet. We have talked about some video game adaptations as well. It doesn't matter the source, just follow the link. Every purchase supports the podcast.
Check out the full list at thenextreel.com/originals and get reading, watching, performing, or playing today.